Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable advisors from across the country. And joining me on this segment from Columbus, Ohio is Adam Koós. He's the president and senior financial advisor with Libertas Wealth Management Group. Adam, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Adam, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically who are the types of folks that you specialize in helping?
We're a full-service fiduciary registered investment advisory firm. So we're one of the few fiduciaries in the country that, and our primary purpose, I would say, would be financial planning, investment management for first-generation business owners looking to sell their company at some point in the future, and then C-suite, D-suite, SVP, and VP executives.
Right on. Now that sounds like there's a lot involved there. Can you tell us what their specific challenges are that are different than everybody else? What are their biggest roadblocks and obstacles that you help them navigate?
Sure. I would think I'll start backwards. So that the execs, they're working for the big Fortune 500 companies. I think their toughest challenges are probably a combination of making sure that their family's taken care of should something, heaven forbid, happen to them. I know that's one that, we it's almost a cliche, we talk about it. We don't want to think about it. It's kind of morbid, I guess, but it's a problem that we want to, it doesn't seem like a big problem, but it's the biggest problem. And then from there, I would say that it's the complicated benefits packages. It's things like stock options, whether that's non-qualified stock options, restricted stock units, things like that. So basically confusing benefits packages that don't make a whole lot of sense, then trying to combine financial planning, retirement planning with tax planning all together so that it all makes sense. So I would say that for executives, that's probably the biggest issue. And then for business owners, being that I am one, I'm really passionate about it. But their biggest concern, my fear, is one that they don't know they have, which is most business owners don't realize that they can sell their companies someday. And then for those that do think they can sell, most of them don't realize the work they can do to increase the value of their company, increase the multiple. And then the saddest, I guess, statistic is that of all the business owners who do sell, last statistic I saw, more than 75% of them 1 year later regret selling at all because they did no planning. And it's almost like life after football, when you're done playing in the pros, you don't know what to do with your life. It's the same with business owners, except you're 60, 65, and now you're bored and you don't know what to do with your life now that your baby's gone.
Wow, I could resonate with that because I could imagine for both executives and for business owners, it sounds like a second full-time career to try to keep up with being a financial professional and figuring that out when they really want to run their business or work on what it is in their field. So, speaking of that, there's a lot of information. We're in the world of information overload now. Do you tend to find people looking for this information themselves and thinking they can do it themselves? Are there any myths or misconceptions people hold out there? What kind of misinformation do you hear people talking about that thinking they could do this themselves?
I'll start from the other side this time. So business owners, I don't think they're looking for it. I think they're too busy running their business, managing their staff, and growing their company. So I don't think that they spend a lot of time looking at, and I'm speaking from experience because, there's several professionals that I hire because I know that I'm going to stay in my lane and do what I do best. And I'm going to farm out everything that I don't do. So business owners aren't really looking for much, I don't think. Typically, I think they're just focused on their business. When it comes to executives, the people, who are really, really successful, C-suite executives at big companies or small companies for that matter, I guess it doesn't have to be a big company. I think that many of them are looking for a way that they can do it simply on their own. I think in many cases, and when I say many cases, we're not talking about a majority. I would guess that probably 20 to 30% of them, maybe, if I had to put a number on it, are looking for ways to do it on their own. And thankfully, due to the fact that the stock market, for instance, hasn't taken a drop in value that doesn't recover in more than 4 months later for 13 years now, it's perceivably very easy, right? Now, when we have the next mortgage crisis or tech bubble or whatever that is, the apocalypse du jour, I think that'll change. But I still think there's another 70 to 80% of people out there that are they don't know what to ask. They don't know what to look for. But I always say that, there's nothing wrong with looking for the unicorn of retirement planning and doing it all on your own, you just have to have two things. You have to have the interest in it first and foremost, and then you have to have the time. And if you don't have the interest, you won't spend the time. And even if you do have the interest, some people just don't have the time because they have kids and families and just a lot going on. But you can do all this stuff on your own if, again, you have the interest, the time, and you spend that time focused on it.
Now, you sparked my curiosity here when you said people don't know what to ask, because it's true.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. Can you maybe give us a 10,000-foot view of what are some of the things people should be asking, but maybe don't quite know to ask?
I think probably the first one, which I think they know to ask, I think they're afraid to, or they're punting, that they're busy, everybody's busy, is how much should I be saving? I mean, we both know on this call, it doesn't take a rocket science to know that the earlier you start, the better off you are. And the more you save, the better off you are. Now, nobody wants to go live paycheck to paycheck and live broke and not have fun during their working years. But so you shouldn't do that, of course. But I think the first question is, how much do I need to save in order to quit when I'd like to have the choice to quit, or as I like to say, to make work optional someday. Not to say you have to quit, but so you can walk in one day and say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm quitting. And I think most people just with their 401ks, for instance, they say, well, my match is dollar for dollar up to 4%. So I'm just going to put away 4%. Or, oh, I had a bonus this year, got a raise. I think I'll do 6% now. But there's no real end game in mind. It's I'm putting money into it because of the match, or maybe not because of the match, because somebody told me I was supposed to save, maybe my dad or a colleague, or I don't know, a book in school, or an economics book or something. But I think that some of the questions that they don't ask are what would happen to my family if I were gone? How would my family replace that income? Or if it's not the primary breadwinner, and oftentimes we'll have somebody who, with younger people in their 40s who have kids, they don't have enough insurance. People who are in their late 50s, I'll say, they don't think, and I don't, by the way, I don't even sell insurance as a fiduciary. We don't sell any insurance here. So, but I still think this is a huge problem where we have people in their mid 50s, late 50s that are kind of getting close to that point at which they're ready to quit working. And they're not thinking about the fact that a long-term care facility like assisted living, skilled nursing costs $9,000 a month in Ohio, for instance. I don't know what it is in Illinois, but it's not cheap. I can tell you that much. So I think it's just planning. I think they don't. Some people are great planners, but I don't think most people are.
Great insights. As you start working with folks that may have started doing this on their own, or been guided by information they find on the internet, do you find that people do you find people making big, common, glaring mistakes, or any pitfalls that they fall into commonly that you can kind of warn people about?
Yeah, I think that the first big one is not starting early enough, not starting the planning process early enough, not saving early enough, not saving enough, thinking that the match is all they need to put away into their 401k. Another one would be not really analyzing their income, their spouse's income if they're married, to determine whether or not it makes sense to put money in a traditional pre-tax 401k versus a Roth. I've been seeing more and more where people are putting money into the Roth because they just think that, oh, well, I've got some pre-tax money. I think I'll have some after-tax money now because that just seems to make sense. Balance in my head seems to make sense, when really they're leaving tons and tons of money on the table and giving it to the IRS. I would think that's another one. And then probably the biggest by far is having a written, comprehensive plan, a roadmap in place that says, based on what I'm spending today, what I'm saving today, my future expenses that I expect in today's dollars, let's just say things like how often I'm going to buy a new car net after trade-in, how often am I going to go on a big vacation, maybe overseas vacations, how often am I going to spend going to visit my kids, road trips, long weekends, and what's that going to cost? So all the things that go way out into the future, extrapolating that out into the future, and knowing that you're saving enough to do all the things on your bucket list that you want to achieve. And the fact of the matter is that most people don't have a financial plan. And I think the reason why is because most companies probably charge a hard dollar fee for it. And it's hard to fork over, $2,000, $3,000 for a plan. We don't charge a hard dollar for plans at our office, but most firms do. And that's tough, to I don't know, to carve over that nut, especially when we're saying start early. And maybe people who are starting earlier don't want to fork the money over. But once you get in your 50s, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Your kids are leaving the house, they're going to college or not. You're empty nesters. You should have a financial plan. And I think most people don't. And that's probably the biggest mistake I think people make.
Fantastic insights. A lot of things to consider. Adam, like, what inspired you to even get into this field and help people with their finances? Like, how did you get started?
That's a great question. So I started. It's a long story, but I won't. I won't give you. I'll give you the Cliffs Notes version. I grew up. My dad was an optometrist, and I grew up going to his office on my bike on the way home from school every day. And I'd always watch how much his staff loved him and what a great culture he had in his office. How much his patients loved him, and I wanted that. I mean, one day I wanted to have that culture, and I loved medicine, but I shadowed him one day, and I thought, watched him talk to his patients, 12, 14 patients a day, saying, is this one better? Or is that one? What about this one? What about that one? I'm thinking, you do this 14 times a day. And it just didn't seem all that exciting to me. So I went to college and I knew I wanted to get into medicine, but I didn't know what. And I ended up going down the trauma surgery track. And again, to make a very long story short, I competed in Taekwondo for Ohio State way, way, way back in the day. And I always say 70 pounds ago. And at that time, the fighting kept me so focused on school and studying, and I did very well at it. And when I couldn't fight anymore, I ended up having a career-ending injury my junior year. And after that, I kind of wanted to make up for lost time, and I didn't want to go to school for 7 more years. So my dad said to me, I know you don't want to be a doctor anymore, but what do you think about being a financial surgeon instead? And that kind of, he introduced me to his financial advisor. And I still wasn't totally enthralled in the whole concept, but once I saw what you could help people, truly help people, and make a huge impact in their lives and build multi-decade relationships with people with whom you're making huge impacts in their lives, their families' lives, and you could do it while making a good living yourself, it seemed like a no-brainer. So I thought I'd give it a shot, and then I fell in love with it. So here I am 20 years later, and I don't have an optometry practice. I don't have patients per se, but I've got a wonderful family of clients that I love, an extended family that I love. When I look at my calendar, I always love who I'm seeing when I walk in the door. I love my staff. We have a great time here. So I always say I haven't worked in 2 decades.
I love that story, and you could really tell that you found your passion as a financial surgeon after all. So yeah, that is terrific. Adam, for folks that maybe are a little behind the 8 ball on getting their plan together, or they want to, another look at it. Before I ask you my last question, what advice would you give them if they didn't really know where to start? What should they look for in an advisor that they're considering working with?
That's a great question. The hardest thing to find is trust. I mean, it's just, and I can't answer that question. I mean, I actually made a video. It's on our YouTube page, pinned on our YouTube page. Like, how do you find someone you can trust? And it's such an individual thing. Everybody has. I've been meeting with somebody recently, actually, a prospective client, where this has never happened in my career, but we've gone to happy hour twice just to talk, and we haven't even gone into the process of spending 2 hours doing a discovery meeting, a 1 hour education meeting, an hour and a half financial planning meeting. We're just talking, and they're trying to decide if they like me or not, if they can trust me. So I think the first thing is trust. And I think that the best advice I have is that if you go to a website, it's NAPFA.com, or no, I'm sorry, NAPFA.org. So it's the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors. And if you type in your zip code, wherever you are in the country, it's going to pull up a list of all the fiduciaries in your area. A fiduciary is basically a financial advisory firm that has dropped all of their brokerage licenses, which means they legally cannot accept a commission. So by getting commissions out of the picture and all the kickbacks for referrals and things like that, which fiduciaries cannot do, what it does is it eliminates almost all the conflicts of interest that exist. So I think what that does is it'll show you the top, call it 8% of firms in the country, basically, just based on conflict of interest or conflict-free advice off the bat. And then from there, I think what you've done is 90% of the research, and by just narrowing your focus down. And then from there, I would just pick 3, 4, whatever, and interview them and go talk, ask questions, and determine who you think you get along with the best, honestly.
Sage advice. Adam, for folks listening that would love to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Sure. Our website is libertaswealth.com. On our contact page, you can either send us a message. You can set up an intro call there, like a 20-minute intro call, just to chit chat, get to know each other, determine whether or not we might have a fit now or at some point in the future. And then I always like to say, even if you just want to have a question, my email address is adam@libertaswealth.com. And you never have to be a client to ask a question. So, like I said, I do this because I love it, not because Well, I guess I do it because it's a job too. But but I do love my job, so I never mind, just answering questions and doing tons of pro bono work as well,
And you
even
never
especially to
work a
save
day in your
somebody.
life if you love it
That's
so
right.
much.
That's right. Yeah.
Adam, you've been terrific. I really appreciate
Thank you.
your sage advice, and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today. I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. I really do.
Adam Koós, President and Senior Financial Advisor with Libertas Wealth Management Group out of Columbus, Ohio. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.